Good morning, everyone. This is WU 100.1, Frankfurt, Alberta. And you are listening to Whispers of Departure with Maristela and Bill. Thank you so much for being with us today. We just to remind our listeners, what is this show all about, right? Well, we believe that preparing for dying and preparing for death is the best way to lessen any fears that we might have about the whole process. Being that is a natural, process, we are programmed to die. We have an expiration date, and the body knows what to do when the time comes. So there's nothing to fear. And especially because death, we don't understand death as the opposition to life. Death is actually a culmination of life, perhaps the last stage of life, right? And we don't know what comes after. Nobody knows, but we know that it culminates life. So today I have a very special guest who is coming to us from all the way from Ibiza in Spain, and his name is Luis de Oribe, and I'm so happy he's here today. Hi, Luis.
Hello, Maristela.
Thank you so much for being here. And just to kind of make our listeners aware of who you are before we start this interview, let's see, I want to say that you are currently living in Ibiza, like I just said, in Spain, and you are a certified acupuncturist, a certified life coach, a certified grief counselor, a certified death doula, like myself. You also have, I also certified in self-harm and suicide awareness and prevention. And you are a long life metaphysical researcher. And you have studied a range of subjects from quantum physics to Rosicrucianism, from Kabbalah to Spiritism, and much more. So I'm really, really excited about this conversation today. Again, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I read a little bit about who you are, and maybe at the end of the show you can give us your website so that we can kind of visit. But I'm most interested in hearing. Maybe you can start with grief coaching. What is a grief coach? What do you do? Maybe first of all, you know what? I wanted to know, how did you come to do this kind of work? Everything that you do, all the certifications you have, all of the education you have.
Well, you see, I first started working as an acupuncturist. And, acupuncture is quite good for palliative care. So I started to treat quite a few terminal patients. And while doing this, I started to realize that actually what these people really needed was coaching in learning about death. Actually, the physical pain was the least of their worries. They were much more concerned about what was happening to them. You see, society doesn't prepare us at all, about preparing yourself to go through physical death. And so the state of these people, they were emotionally, it was what really made me realize these people, they need coaching. They need someone to guide them through this process, because they know absolutely nothing of what's going on, and that's why I started to get into this. I realized that coaching, what I like about it is a proactive discipline. For example, counseling is much more analyzing how the person is feeling, how they are. But with coaching, what we do is, with whatever we have here and now, what do we do with this? So, you come here with a terminal illness. Let's focus. What do we do with this? Where do we start? So that's what I like, because they really lost, these people. So they don't know how to handle the situation in the least. Neither the loved ones, they're completely lost as well. So it's kind of a mess, the whole situation. Well, it is quite organized and properly focused. It can be a positive experience. So I know it sounds very strange to hear this, but it is. So they really needed this. They really needed someone to guide them through through this. So my preparation from then onwards was to do this. That's why I became a death doula, and starting to study coaching as well, counseling, but mostly to see the difference between counseling and coaching. I really like the proactive approach with these people.
I see. What I'm hearing here is that in terms of being proactive, what you mean is like being very pragmatic, right? How you approach,
Yes.
we develop skills, how do we handle? Is that what you mean by?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Put some order in the situation, For example, it's something quite interesting. People in the last stages, the first thing they think about, well, first is the emotional part with their loved ones. They start feeling guilty about what they haven't done. Okay, so we still have a little time to fix it. Okay, I always use the main tool for me is forgiveness to yourself and to others. That's the main tool for all the emotional turmoil, let's say. Yes. Then, for example, another aspect that they really, really need some help with is the legacy. What are they leaving behind? We all want to have left something behind. So make that some sense out of that. You don't have to be rich to leave a legacy, There are many other ways. So help them with that. And then, of course, understanding. We need understanding of the process.
The process of death, the process of dying?
Exactly, absolutely. The process of physical death, we need to understand where we stand with this. Because if you realize the concept we have about death is still the same concept from the Victorian times. It hasn't evolved at all. While science has evolved amazingly since then, our concept of death hasn't. And it's really because we don't talk about it. But science has moved on from that. Big deal. In the Victorian times, science told us that we were just a physical body, that physical body is made of matter, that matter will disintegrate, therefore you will cease to exist, and that's it. No more. Okay, so after we listen to that, okay, we just turn into this, okay, I don't want to know any more about this. This is a big taboo subject. We don't talk about it anymore. And for generations, this has happened in the last 100 years. We just don't talk about it. While science now is telling us quite clearly since Einstein already told us that the fabric of space-time, that would be our reality where we move, the physical reality, fluctuates. It bends. Forces like gravity bends the fabric of space-time. Then it came quantum physics with the string theory telling us that actually for that to make sense, for our reality to make sense, we live in a multidimensional world. And if we realize all during history, every single civilization have had a spiritual leader claiming that we are indeed multidimensional beings. So that's
I think Einstein said that there are 11 dimensions, right? And
yes, it wasn't exactly Einstein. It was after him. It was a string theory. String theory came a little bit after Einstein. And one theory is 11 dimensions. The other one is 22, I think.
Wow.
But the important thing with this is to understand that our physical reality is a small part of who we are. And this is not crazy anymore. Science is even telling us as this. Okay, of course, you still have scientists that they blush when they have to acknowledge this. They don't want to talk about it because they have themselves this upbringing that death is this big taboo we don't talk about. So for them, recognizing that actually our reality is a multidimensional reality, they don't feel really comfortable about it. But now it's really interesting that if we peel religions, we take the superstition, we take all these things that were made after the spiritual leader, the original spiritual leader, like Jesus Christ with Christianity, Mohammed in Islam, Abraham, they all claim one thing: we are multidimensional beings. They all claim we have a soul. Yes, now that sounded quite silly, maybe, until science actually acknowledged that we are indeed living in a multidimensional reality. Yes, so we put one on one together and we use some common sense. Then we have to acknowledge actually this should be the way living multidimensional beings living in a multidimensional reality. You see?
Tell me something, Luis. How does this work in making people aware of these additional realities? How does that help someone in their last stages of life?
Well, is because how they handle it is very different. Thinking that you will cease to exist, your consciousness will cease to exist. Other very different thing is prepare, close down this lifetime, okay, because we have to prepare for the next one or for whatever is coming. So they don't see this ending and goodbye and that's it. You understand? Instead, no, be proactive, be positive, because there's a lot of happening here. This is the last act of your physical life, okay? But it has to be like a celebration for you to move on, you know, for you to move on. And the concept of moving on, even though you're dying, it changes completely the process of death. You understand?
I love it. I love it.
Completely. They love it. Okay, actually, the clients, when they realize, so this is not the end, and no, actually, it might probably be the beginning. You know, but we're still here and now. Okay, so how do we close out this stage of your life? Okay, this physical life. How do we close it up? Okay, let's do the legacy. Let's do forgiveness. Let's be in touch with our loved ones. Let's sort everything out, how you want your will and this and that. But all this is to prepare for what is coming. So it changes everything. It's a whole game changer. You understand?
So tell me this. I mean, in this process of change,
Yeah.
you know, in this way, in assuming that people are going to start not there, right? There's going to be a process. How did you learn to listen to a person's grief about dying, right? Without trying to fix it? Because I think a lot of the times we wanted to make the person feel better, you know, not in the way that
absolutely. Yes, I completely understand what you mean, and this is something very important. You cannot fix anyone, because even if you try, it will not work. So don't try it, because it will not work. You can help them to fix themselves, okay? And that's what we're here to do, okay? To give them hints, give them different points of views, so they can decide as well what's good for them. You know, many people, for example, and I had a few clients that were in the final stages, and they were just happy with the legacy and the emotional thing. Just the hint of knowing that something might come was good for them. Okay, others, they know it's not enough. They need to know everything. You know, great. So let's work on that as well. But it really depends on each of them, because actually they have to fix themselves. You know, so that's very important. You have to respect the limits and where they want to go and how.
So it's very individualized work.
Absolutely, it is.
You were talking about forgiveness before, and I know that, you know, as a therapist, I know that sometimes grief is tied to guilt. So what is your sense of the relationship between grief and guilt?
Well, guilt is it's always grief is basically the feeling of loss. Yeah, it doesn't even have to be about death. You can grieve anything you have lost in your life. Yes,
sure.
But mostly guilt is always associated with emotional part, with the one of our loved ones. That part of ourselves, there's always guilt behind. You know, there's a lot of guilt that can always be there. And for me, I found that the best way I sit my clients, and they need to write 2 letters. One letter is to everyone they feel they have hurt and ask for their forgiveness. And the other one is for everyone they have hurt. You know, the one that they have hurt, ask for forgiveness, and the ones that they feel these people have hurt them, okay, and forgive them. You know, you need to forgive the people, and you need to ask for forgiveness as well. These both are very, very important. And of course, writing a letter for the people you think you have hurt, okay, it's all about guilt. What we're trying to solve here is the feeling of guilt.
Sure, I see.
But it's very important when in the last stages, guilt, for some reason, it really comes out, you know, unfinished business.
I was thinking, what if they wanted to do that, but they can't write anymore? Like some people have, you know, Parkinson's or whatever. They cannot. They can. Do you help them to like? Do they can?
Oh yes, they can do a recording.
Okay.
You know, if they can do a recording, that works as well. You know, I like the writing. You know why? Because it's amazing when they start writing, how things that they were in their subconscious, they start coming back. You know, and suddenly they start writing this and that other one. So it's really, really great that way. So I always try to push people to be able to do it in writing, because a lot comes out. We have a connection with our subconscious and writing. that they really interconnect. So a lot comes out of it. So it's very positive in that sense. It's very cathartic.
Do you always work with individuals only, or do you also work with groups, like classes? Do you teach
I
classes?
haven't actually, no, because now what I'm I'm working on a guide. Okay, is Deconstructing Death, a practical guide to process physical death, and it's very important. I need to finish it once and for all. So I haven't had time to develop that. But that was in my mind, but not yet.
Okay, I see. But you were creating like a manual, like a.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
Because I do a lot of exercises like this one I'm giving you. The many other exercises.
Mhm.
Experience is a very important part of all this. You need to
Sure.
do exercises, So just if not just the intellectual concept of all this will just be food for the mind at the end, and it's not enough if you're in the final stages. That would not be enough, you know.
Mhm.
So there's something
Sure.
Einstein said that I love, and he says, real knowledge is experience. The rest is just information. So at the end, information will not be enough. You need experience. You need to know about these things. You need to experience these things. So there's a lot of exercises about this.
I love it. I'm still focused on the grief thing here, right? And I'm thinking that
Mm-hmm.
like any other human condition, emotion,
Yeah.
other human emotion,
Yes. Yeah.
grief has to be integrated. I think what you're describing to is how do you integrate grief
Absolutely.
in the process. And I was wondering, so I guess you also think about the ones who are losing a loved one. So how do you go about, if you do that, how do you go about helping your clients, to, after they lose somebody that they love? I mean,
Yeah.
how do you help them with that kind of grief? Like I lost my father,
Well,
my mother, my child. How,
yeah. I go gradually, let's say. I start as well with grief, mostly of a loved one. One of the most important things that we need to cover is empowerment, because the person feels completely abandoned, and that's a very strong feeling in the grieving
mm,
process, a
mm,
feeling of abandonment.
mm,
So to compensate for that, we need to empower the person,
mhm.
because that person obviously was an important pillar in their lives.
Sure.
So we need to compensate that with self-empowerment, then forgiveness. Then we try for the person to forgive the other and ask for forgiveness as well, the emotional turmoil. Yes, that we need to fix, definitely. And then is something, and this, we jump a little bit more, we go deeper, and it's something that I call the critical phase. The critical phase in grieving for me is that part when you feel the presence of the loved one all around you. You know, if you have lost someone, you know what I'm telling you about. You
Oh,
really feel the person around you, and that's when you
yeah.
miss him the most, because your mind is telling you, no, he's dead, he's there no more. And so it creates this big conflict inside. You feel the person, but your mind is telling you, no one is there, you're alone. And it creates so much suffering, that critical phase.
Yeah.
So if we understand death, we start to explore death, and we see that consciousness is not part of that physical death. And for that, there are exercises I can explain you later on.
Mm.
Then you can see that the consciousness of that loved one is not gone and is there. And actually, when you feel that energy, it's because that presence, that consciousness is trying to comfort you. So open up to that comfort,
Ah,
instead of pushing it away with your mind, embrace it. So you can turn that critical phase that is so painful, we can turn it into something that is actually very beautiful,
I love it.
So,
I really like that a lot because for two things,
yeah.
two aspects. One is that there are many mysteries about dying, right? I
Hmm.
mean, I think
Yeah.
that's one that you can still feel, and that the consciousness of the person.
Everybody that is grieving you, they tell you, doesn't it?
Yes,
Isn't
yes,
it?
right. Yeah, yeah. So one of the mysteries, right,
Hmm.
that we can't explain. So I do
Yeah,
like
but
that.
we can. Nowadays, we can. Okay, nowadays we can explain it.
Okay.
Okay, because we have the gate that science has opened for us, the multidimensional reality. So we
Hmm.
can explain it nowadays.
So
That's a
let me ask you
part.
a question. Let me ask you a question about
Yes.
that because I think it's a similar thing, but you tell me if I am wrong
Yeah.
or something
Hmm.
different.
Go on.
But I've heard that from many people, and very often, with my father, in fact, when my father died, the week before he died, and he wasn't even sick. I mean, my father had a lot of chronic issues and chronic problems, health problems, but he was not actively dying the week before he died. And he was he was in the bedroom, and my mother was in the house as well, and she heard my father talking to somebody. And she go, oh, she didn't realize that somebody was in the house. So she went, knocked on the door, opened the door of the bedroom, and he was alone. And she asked, who are you talking to? And he said, I was talking to my mother and my aunt and my sister. Now, mind you, my grandmother died in 1985, and his sister died like 10 years later. So they were all dead. And yet he was talking to them. And my mother was really, irritated and somewhat scared. And so, now, of course not. How could you be talking to them? But he was, So, and I've heard a lot about that people, are visited by loved ones who have died, and so right before they died. So that's kind of the mystery that I was thinking about. So from your perspective, that's also consciousness that was still there, present with my father.
Absolutely. It's something that it always happens. And that's why it's very important to understand this, because when you're in the final stages, you start to open up to different multidimensional realities. Remember, we are multidimensional beings in a multidimensional universe. So when we're ready to cross to other dimensions, we start meeting the people from the other dimensions, Science tells us we are in a multidimensional world. Okay, so this is what happens in a multidimensional world. Let's not forget something else that science is telling us. Nowadays, science has acknowledged that 95% of the universe is dark matter and dark energy. 95%, So actually, scientists, they know 5% of our own reality, of all of reality, they know 5%. The other 95 are obviously, they are these higher dimensions we are talking about. So obviously, all dimensions, they have living beings in them, So these are people that they have to send to higher dimensions, and they are there to help you do the process of physical death, to help you in the process of dying, And what happens if they don't teach you any of this, if you don't know any of this, your mind will keep pushing them away. And so your process will be much more painful and much more traumatic, the dying process, than when you surrender to your guides that they come and help you to cross over. So that is a beautiful death. Actually, some people, they really smile when they are that, because they see the whole bigger reality that is open up to them. So that's why I think it's really important to tell them and to explain them these things, and actually to train them with exercises to do it beforehand, to be ready.
Maybe I was wondering here, about more the exercises, because it's not uncommon for grief now in our culture, I think especially American culture, but I say modern culture, in general. That pathologizing grief, is a problem. You only can you're grieving after 6 months. Oh my God, something is wrong with you. So how might we change that, culturally speaking? But I don't know if you have an answer to that. Obviously, nobody does. But maybe what are some of the exercises that we can do to sort of like normalize, or help people do to normalize grief, whether it's because I'm dying or because a loved one has died? How do we know?
Well, like with any other taboo subjects, by taking it out of the closet. Look at homosexuality, for example. It was this big taboo, wasn't it, a few decades ago? People took it out of the closet, and now it's quite a normal thing, isn't it? So here is the same thing. We need to take it out of the closet. And actually, society, it is ready now to take it out of the closet, because they realize how much they're suffering about this. They're really, really striving. They're really struggling with this. So I think they're ready now to really take it out of the closet and find all these answers that actually they're available to them. We need to update them, okay? Not about what in the Victorian times they told you. No one believed with just physical matter that will disintegrate and that's it. Everyone knows that is not so anymore. But still, because we don't talk about it, our subconscious mind is really terrified, thinking that's it. So we don't wanna know. This is terrible.
Can you tell us a couple of the exercises that you do that are part of the manual that you're creating, if that's not
Yeah. Oh,
Is it
yes.
appropriate to ask you to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm very happy to. For example, for you to prove yourself, because telling you about what science says and what all religions have been saying for centuries might not be enough. At the end, as Einstein used to say, that is just information. You need to experience this. Now, there's this exercise. It's called OBE, an OBE. OBE is an out-of-body experience. And
Okay.
that's something you can train yourself to do, is moving your consciousness. First, you move it around your physical body. Once you manage to move your consciousness around your physical body, you move it around outside your body, and that's what it's called. It's called in New Age movements and that astral traveling. It's quite similar that when we do that when you're asleep and we are dreaming, actually, if you realize you have a body. That's a misconception that everyone has, is that when you cross over, you'll be this little cloud or something, you will be bodiless. No, in each dimension, you have a body of that dimension, So in the astral plane, you have an astral body, for example. In a causal plane, that they call it, where you would have your higher consciousness, your higher self. You have another body as well. So you need to train yourself to get out your astral body outside your physical body, and that's something you can train yourself to do. And for what is important, because what's good for me to walk around the house with my consciousness, because then you will prove to yourself, you will know that you are more than your physical body.
So how do you do that? You sit down and you just you close your eyes and
Guided meditations. Guided meditations. Yes, by guided meditations is what I found the best way to do to help the clients is with guided meditations, and a lot of patience. A lot of patience. But it's very important that the person feels confident enough that they have experienced that. So then they will know. They will not believe that there's something more than the physical body. They will know because they have been there. And that's a game changer.
That's
then they will know. Yes, you can have a psychiatrist telling you that might be imagination or this or that, but if you have done it yourself, you will know. You know what's your imagination or what's your reality. So the important thing is do it yourself. It's essential to do it yourself. So then you will prove yourself that you are more than your physical body. And that's a game changer, because when you're dying as well, that will happen, you like it or not. So if you have done it already, it's a lot of help.
You're more
but that's just one. Yeah, but that's other exercise that I found really interesting, and for people to integrate the whole concept of self is past life regression.
Okay.
So regression therapy, but going beyond your childhood, going beyond when you were born, going back to your afterlife. And some people, it's amazing how ready they were for that, because they go immediately. Other people, hardly anything at all. But this is another exercise. For me, the only interesting part that I get from this is the experience of something more than just your actual physical body. That you are more than that. You were more than that. Those memories were from your other existences. So that proves to yourself, you will know you're more than a physical body. So that's another very.
What do the Buddhists say? What I'm just reminded of this thing that Buddhism says, or as a question. What did your face look like before you were born? Oh no, actually, what did your face look like before your mother was born? So that's that I remember that was a question.
Absolutely. Now with this one, because I'm very open, I always insist that all religions are part of the same puzzle.
Okay.
They all, if you peel all religions, the messages always are the same. Message number one is you're a multidimensional being, you're a soul, you're more than your physical body. Message number two is peace. It's amazing how wrong they get it then after religions, isn't it? Because all of them, every single spiritual leader speaks about peace. Peace, and we are multidimensional beings. That's the messages I found. I've been studying religions for a very long time. But some religions, they really don't accept reincarnation. So this is depending on the client. If they have religious beliefs that they do not allow this, then this I will save it for other people that are more ready, let's say, for this.
It's a very interesting thing. I agree with you. And I was thinking exactly that culture shapes our understanding of dying and living, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and I was thinking, I mean, you are Latino, you're from Argentina. I don't think I said
Yeah.
before, but you're from
Mm-hmm.
Buenos Aires, Argentina. But you left Argentina very young when you were 18,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
and you lived in Europe, you lived in London, and now you live in
Mm-hmm.
Spain. I was
Yeah.
wondering,
Well, I come and go. I live between London and Ibiza. I come and
I see,
go all the time.
okay.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So, do you think, I mean, are there some cultural considerations present in grief work? Like when you do your grief work, you are in London or you are
Well,
in Spain,
yeah.
how do you approach,
Mm-hmm.
are there differences?
It's actually quite superficial, the difference in the sense that
Mm,
Latin people, we are more passionate and more emotional, if you want.
mm.
Uh, and the English, for example, they're more reserved, let's say. It's not that they don't feel it, but they don't express it. That's the only difference.
Oh,
And the knowledge they have of death is exactly the same as the knowledge the Latin people have of death. Nothing. Okay,
okay.
so you need to start from
Everybody don't know.
scratch.
Okay.
Doesn't matter if they are Latinos or they are Europeans, all of them, actually, all Western societies know nothing. Okay, so pretty much the same.
Mm-hmm,
I have to
mm-hmm.
say, it's more cosmetic, the difference, than anything else.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I was thinking also, I don't know if you already spoke a lot about it, but I'd love to know a little bit more about your program, Deconstructing Death.
Mm-hmm,
Can you
mm-hmm.
tell us a little bit more, or did you already cover that?
I chose the name Deconstructing because it's really before coaching how to help someone in the final stages, we have actually to face what exactly the concept of death. And because it's so wrong, the concept we have of death, we need to deconstruct it. That's why, and I believe that with grief is the same thing. Actually, I believe with suicide is the same thing. We need to deconstruct those concepts because we got it all wrong. I'm sorry to say so. These are very taboo subjects, I insist, that
Sure.
society doesn't want to talk about them. So that's why we know so little about it. So we need to deconstruct whatever little things we know because actually they're wrong anyway. So but let's deconstruct it first, and then we build it up from scratch. That's why I like to call it deconstructing. And is as I said, for me, there are three keys for helping someone in the final stages are legacy, forgiveness, and understanding. Those are the three keys for
Mhm.
someone in their final stages. It's amazing how they all react the same way. They all want to deal with the legacy part. They all feel the need to settle, obviously, their emotional ties, how to solve them, because some people, they have very messy lives, I have to say, emotional lives. They feel a lot of guilt deep inside that it comes out when they know they're going to die.
Mm.
Amazingly, they didn't realize they were going to die. How it's like, didn't you think about this before? Didn't you realize that one day you were going to die? No, literally they didn't. So that's always comes out. So for me, there are the three keys. And as I said, with legacy, it's pretty much with everyone. It's the same, really depending as well the financial situation that they are in. So it can be very different, but it can be very positive on all levels. Plant a tree or write a book. There are many, many legacies you leave behind, So there's a lot you can do about that. A lot. It's amazing how they start to realize, in the moment, how many things, when you're coaching someone about this, all these ideas that start coming out. It's quite exciting. And
Mhm.
the same comes with forgiveness when we're dealing, as you said, guilt, because it's usually, yes, it really is the main emotional uh, feeling that they have to deal with in the final stages is forgiveness. It's amazing, but it's true. You're completely right.
Mhm.
Both, works both ways. To forgive others and to ask for forgiveness, both of them. So that's something very important that we need to settle. Sometimes they come, oh, but this person has died. This person I've hurt so much. What do I do? And it's, remember, we are consciousness don't die, So you write it nevertheless, and you will feel the forgiveness, you will feel the release. So do it nevertheless, even if you haven't started to understanding. Okay, we
Yeah.
haven't reached the understanding phase. Do it nevertheless, and they feel it so strongly, that I don't need to even to explain them at that time what's happening with the consciousness of the other people. They really feel the forgiveness. So it's a really beautiful exercise, that one, definitely.
It sounds very intuitive.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And it's very personalized in that sense. Absolutely. But people that are quite open books. Then the one that is really surprising is the understanding. Suddenly, some people that you think they were prepared to understand the multidimensional side of themselves and of the universe and everything, they're quite close up to this. And some people that they've been completely pragmatic and completely atheists, they've been atheists all their lives,
Realistic.
never believing of anything, and boom, they get it immediately. It's really strange. You can never guess. It's amazing that. It's so interesting. It really, really interesting. It's like they suddenly they connect to this other part of themselves that they always knew it was there, but they didn't realize it yet. It's quite a magical process.
I was thinking that I do teach a course on preparing for dying. And
Okay.
I think, roughly speaking, the three elements that you mentioned, I think I teach them too, maybe a little bit different focus, but I think they included. I was thinking,
Forgiveness and legacy, you mean?
definitely, yeah. The emotional and relational aspects, of our lives.
Yeah.
And like you see, and I mean, plenty of times I work with people who have, they're estranged from their family. They
Oh,
have
yeah.
ties with their parents or their children, and they're suffering.
Yeah.
And now at the point of dying, they are regretting. They are, yeah, like everything that you said. I mean, I feel like I need to be forgiven by my son, or whatever,
Yeah.
or I never forgave my father, long dead. It's sure. I mean, that is definitely
Yeah.
an aspect. I was also thinking that there are two others, and maybe already in a way we spoke of them, but there are two things that I kind of added to my courses, and I was wondering what you think of them. One is the spiritual aspect. And I know that you talk about the dimensions and the transitions between dimensions and the transition between, death and what comes after. Usually in the way that I talk to my clients, spirituality has to do with sort of like, what kind of celebrations do I want? Do I want a mass? Do I want a service? Do I want people to come and celebrate my life and, with joy and dance and so that's sort of like what I call the spiritual aspect, of the death process. And then there's another one, which I call the practical matters, and those are like, for instance, what do I do with this body once I'm gone? Since the consciousness, like you said, he has moved on to a different, space, what about this body here? This body that has actually served my consciousness, right? Throughout the the decades that I lived, if it wasn't for this body, well, my consciousness would not have been served, in the way. So those are the two things. I mean, like a few weeks ago, we interviewed somebody that's part of a company that does terramation, which is basically transforming the body in human composting. And by the way, our listeners, you can always go back to the archive and listen to that interview. But I was wondering, Luis, how do you see those two aspects? So if you do that at all, if you find it that necessary to work with your clients in terms of the spirituality and in terms of these practical matters of what to do with the body. So just wondering.
Well, yes, I try to leave that at the end, because at the end of the coaching sessions, if the person understands that he is actually consciousness that will move on, they are much more concerned now about the future than the past. So they're not really concerned about the bodies anymore. It changes the whole concept. If you really understand that your body is your whole self, then they go on and on and on. No, I want this. No, I want that. No, I want this or the other one. If they understand that actually it's just a vehicle we've been using, okay, great, but it's not such a big deal. So they really, it comes as like a second, so it comes on a second plane, all this.
Okay.
So it really believe it. So what are we talking about? Is for them. Are we talking about, and that's why I want to leave it at the end, because are we talking about your whole self, or are we talking just the vehicle you've been using? Because the approach is very different. And for the people living behind, great to do all that. you will realize what I found out is actually they will do what their loved ones they prefer to do because they want to concentrate on what's coming. So it's really going to be the bigger things for the person now, to care about than what will they do when he moves on. So I found out of course, it's very important what you're saying, don't get me wrong, but it's something really to analyze it, and it's very positive. And I love the idea of what you've been saying, the Terra
Affirmation?
thing. Yes, I think it's a great idea. It's so natural, going back to nature, embracing nature, that's a beautiful thing. Nature is a consciousness, it's a beautiful consciousness of the
Yeah,
planet.
yeah,
So you're embracing that part. You're giving back to the planet what the planet has given you, So I think that's a beautiful concept, absolutely. And I would really push them in that sense. I do find, I have to say, embalming quite unnatural. I have to say, quite very unnatural for the whole process. It's like leaving the vehicle half standing there. I don't, your physical vehicle like that. I find it quite, I don't know. It really depends on the client, of course. But I think that the other one, embracing nature, that would create a beautiful feeling for someone going through the last stages, definitely.
yeah. I've been very, very interested in the corpus and what to
Mm-hmm.
do with this, with this vessel,
Yeah,
right? Once consciousness
yeah,
is
yeah,
gone.
yeah,
And so there's some people that have written very interesting pieces, and I hope to interview them someday here. But there's something called theology of dirt, which is precise about the sacredness of returning, the body to, well,
yeah.
to the ground, to dirt. Whether you do it, with your ashes after cremation, whether you do it,
Mm-hmm.
with the body
Yeah.
itself. But I find that a very interesting process of thinking about it,
Absolutely. Yeah,
how
yeah, yeah, yeah. And
because
it's so interesting how each culture has done it its own way. So that that I found quite fascinating, isn't it? The
yeah,
rituals, burial rituals, how they have changed, during centuries is quite interesting. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Of
yeah.
course.
Well, I was wondering if all of this work has how has this work affected the way that you contemplate your own mortality? Tell me about that.
In every single way, and that's why is a thing that I love doing, and because it reminds me every day that I'm a multidimensional being. So that gives you the ultimate. Is Nietzsche defined this as the Übermensch, the Superman. What is a Superman? Someone that, in a sense, has defeated death, you know.
Mm,
So
mm,
it makes me remind myself that my consciousness is immortal. So that's ultimate freedom, that gives you ultimate freedom. There's no feeling like it. And what happens? Because we live in this society always during the day will make you always believe that no, you're just a physical body that will die in pain, So,
mm,
but doing this work every day pushes you, no, this is not the way it is anymore. I'm sorry, this is not how it works. Okay, I can do an OBE at will. I can visit my past lives. I can read science and understand it. So I see what the religions are saying is exactly the same what science is telling us now, that we are multidimensional beings living in a multidimensional universe.
mm,
Sorry, this is not like this. So this pushes me to remind myself of this every single day. So that gives you the ultimate power. That is you are an immortal being. So your
mm,
whole life is completely different. Living as someone that considers themselves immortal, then consider, oh no, I'm gonna die so soon, everything will be gone. Oh, what will I do? But because that's what's in your mind, in your subconscious mind, every single day, if you really believe this, in your mind is that.
mm,
So it changes everything.
mhm, 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 mhm.
Hmm.
What about what about your experience with grief, either your own or
Yeah.
or the grief of those that you worked with? How has grief changed your experience of dying? Now, the grieving process.
Well, the same thing applies. It's very different because that's why I call as well the program of grief is deconstructing grief. Because what do we understand of grief? What are you grieving for? Are you grieving because someone has died? So what do you understand about that? That the person has ceased to exist and there's no more? Or maybe there is a consciousness that maybe with guided meditations, you can connect with that consciousness. You can feel that consciousness. So it's a game changer. It's completely different. Of course, you will grieve because the physical body of that person, you will miss it. But it's very different to miss the physical body of someone than thinking that that person this absolutely has disintegrated and there's no more. You know, they're two very different things. So of course you will grieve, but your grieving process will be quite different.
You know, I just remember something that I ask everyone in the show that comes to the show.
Yeah.
Don't think I asked you, or maybe I think you have touched upon this, you know, in some of your answers. But I was still, I have to ask this question. But so in most corners of our culture, of our contemporary culture, death is a medical event, right? And I know you talk about science and how, you know, science is expanding to understand that behind. But in generally speaking, this myth is super strong, right, in the culture, and every one of us sort of like, you know, if we're not conscious, like you said, intended to embrace this myth that death is a failure of medicine. We tried all these medications, we tried all these tests and all of these, you know, whatever approaches, and we lost the patient. The patient died.
Yeah.
So how do we think we go about, you know, we who are more involved with this work, how do you think we go about undermining this myth? You know, how do we, you know, in our regular
but this is the typical concept that we have, because we don't talk about death, and death is such a big taboo. Then actually a ridiculous part of ourselves does believe that we're going to be immortal for some reason. You know, and so we see medicine, okay, when they with death as a failure, as you say, and actually people do believe that, and it's so pathetic in the sense that, let's face it, your body is not meant to live forever, not this physical body. You know, you're just using it for a very, very short while. This is it. You know, but you need to understand this whole process. But somehow society make us believe that because we don't talk about death, we have this secret hope that we might be forever in this physical body. And that's why if science, if medicine is not making it happen, it's failing. And it's quite pathetic, so childish. You know, I'm sorry to say. It is very childish. How on earth did you think you're going to live forever in this physical body? That has never happened. Billions of people that have been in this planet, okay, it has never happened. You know, so what has make you think this would happen to you? And you see this with the super rich, you know, trying to be immortal, happening, doing these blood transfusions and this and that and all these things. And it's like, you will die, you like it or not, I'm sorry to say. It's just a sooner, you might delay it a few years, maybe a couple of decades, but it will happen. I'm sorry to say, you know, so let's be coherent here. But what you're talking about is completely true. But that happens when we really put something inside the closet and make it such a taboo subject that we have all these huge misconceptions and really illogical misconceptions. You know, that's why it's so ironic when you have some people telling you, no, life after death, that sounds ridiculous. And it's like, and your own conceptions? Do you think they make any sense? You know, it's really interesting. Really interesting. Absolutely.
So I feel like I asked you enough questions about how this work has changed your relationship with your death, with your own dying. I want to ask you now, how has this experience changed your relationship with life? You know, the fact that you are, you know, still alive, still here. How has this work kind of changed their relationship with life?
It really helps you in the sense that, you know, and I don't know how old you are. I'm 54
63.
now.
I'm 63.
Oh my God. Oh, okay. You look much younger, I have to say.
Oh, you're very kind.
At this age, you realize just how quickly everything has passed. Life has passed. It goes by so quickly. So I notice people our age, they start mourning past things that happened to them. They start looking backwards already at this age. And I think that is really negative. And each time, we all know when you look backwards, this pain, always nostalgia, you get this nostalgia instead of looking forward, and this concept about life you're asking is you keep looking forward, and even if I would be 80 or 90, I will still looking forward, in the sense that there's a lot coming. So it really helps you to focus, in the right direction, looking forward. So I never bother about my past. I don't have no time. I found that boring. Who cares? It's done. It's what is coming ahead. So it gives you that excitement of lots of things coming, even if you die. Lots of things are coming. So it gives you that excitement to keep looking forward for things to come. So it keeps you, ironically, it keeps you young, in the sense that, no, I have lived everything I have. No, you never will. Not in this lifetime, not in the next one, not in the one after. So it really gives you that excitement to be here in the here and now, looking forward. So it really changes you with this. So that is it's a great feeling.
Beautiful perspective, of human life.
Yeah.
And
Don't you have friends that already start looking backwards? And it's like, oh, I used to look so much better. Oh, I'm not as attractive as I was, or this or that. And it's like, who cares? Lots of things are coming. Don't waste your time with those little things, So yeah, and that really changes, absolutely. But mostly this as I said before, this is very exciting. I found that is a really exciting time because actually science and religion are starting to meet up, and that has never happened before, ever. It never has happened before. Science and religion starting to meet up in a common concept. So it's really interesting because it's the perfect excuse for us to get death out of the closet, So and change this whole thing. And that's what really humanity needs. I'm convinced humanity needs this. That's why they are so lost. No wonder, fighting these pathetic territorial wars and those little petty, trivial things. Why do they do them? Because they're really lost in that sense. If they would assume actually they have an immortal consciousness that you can access at will, things would really change. You will not pay so much attention to the material things. What's the point of making billions if you have no time to spend them anyway? Just look ahead. There are really exciting things to come.
Yeah, I think that's a very hopeful and very empowering, perspective to have.
I wouldn't have done all this if it wouldn't be otherwise.
What do you mean?
If it would be a depressing thing, I wouldn't be a death coach. If I would find it that is quite depressing, and I have to tell my clients, yeah, you will die painfully, yeah. But hey, if that would be petty. I don't do PT. I don't do PT. I'm not good at PT. I don't like PT. Not to me, not giving it to others. I like empowerment. And in this, I think it's very important and necessary. We have to bring empowerment to this. To the final stages of life. That's my conviction.
I was listening to one of your podcasts, and there is one that talks about masculinity, and I was wondering how does that relate to this idea of normalizing the death process? How does that it's a taboo too, right? Being the masculinity in our culture.
Masculinity and death it creates even a greater dilemma than with women, I found out. On my experience, I would say, definitely. Because men, we are designed much more to be more pragmatical, because we are supposed to be the breadwinners. Therefore, we need more planning, more security, to bring more security in the material aspect of life, let's say. So then when we face someone like that, they are completely clueless in that sense of, whoa, what's happening? Because most men, now men and women are the same because they both have to go out and work. But men really have spent hours and hours and hours of their lives, thousands of hours just making money, just for financial security. So all that is completely pointless. When you're going to cross over, you cannot take any of that to the other side. I try to figure it out, and you cannot. Trust me. Okay, the limitation is there. You cannot take any money with you. That's a big no. So women are more emotional, more intuitive as well. So even though they have the same negative conditioning about death, I will say that because they're more intuitive, they know there's something else. So they face it differently in that sense. Deep inside, they know. They are more clever that way. They have more wisdom internally. It's an intuitive thing they have that most men, I don't know if they don't have it, or maybe society has erased it from us. That I cannot say, But I find women process this better. Maybe they suffer more sometimes because they are more emotional. So maybe they do suffer it more. But men are completely clueless in this situation, completely. And deep inside, even if they don't express it, they're absolutely terrified. Absolutely terrified.
I think when you say emotional, do you mean like women are more closer to their emotions? They are more perceptive in terms of their emotions guided them more, because sometimes they say that women are emotional has like a negative connotation, right?
Oh, no, not in the
emotional.
least. Actually,
No,
no,
that's not
actually,
what you mean.
yeah. Yeah, no. It's the opposite in the sense that if you realize, I found out most people in the final stages, men, as I told you, the three keys are legacy, forgiveness, and understanding.
Right.
Men, the first thing that comes to them is legacy. Is the thing they're more concerned with is legacy. What I'm leaving behind. Yeah, totally. Men is the first main thing. Women instead is forgiveness. They are a step further. Women are a step further, and from that they are more intuitive. They're closer to their own intuition, and intuition, I'm sorry to say, already knows about all these things. So actually my work with understanding is not to teach them anything. Actually, is for them to remember all these things they know. And you will be amazed how they suddenly click, they remember all this. And women, they're closer to this. They're much closer to that intuition, and this intuition knows that the consciousness is eternal in that sense, that it stays. That's why, for example, when a woman is grieving, it's much easier for her to acknowledge the presence of the other person, the person they have lost. It's much easier for them to connect with this presence than men. Men are much more intellectual. No, my mind has tell us no, because my Victorian upbringing says death it means extinguish. Okay, no more, the person is there no more. So I cannot accept it. Women are much more open to accept this.
I see.
So in that sense, it's a very different approach they have. Is interestingly enough.
Oh, great. Oh, we are coming to the end of the show, and it's been so interesting. Love to talk to you again. I was wondering if you can leave us with your website and other information that you feel like would be helpful for us, for our listeners to have.
Well, my website is www.luisdeoribe, just as I spell it, .com. You'll find all my information over there. And you can find as well my YouTube channel where I talk about these subjects. Is as well Luis de Oribe in YouTube. You will find on a few podcasts I had done with some people like this, Masculinity and Masks. And you will have my contact details over there.
Great. I'm going to spell for our listeners, Luis de Oribe, right?
Yeah.
Luisdeoribe. Right?
Exactly. Thank you. Yes, exactly. Yes.
Luis de Oribe. So if you just Google that, you're probably going to find both, right? Your website and your podcast.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. My contact details as well. It would be info at luisdeoribe.com would be my email, but you can find it there in the website.
Okay. All right. Great. Your email. Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much. I wanted to just express my gratitude for you being here with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I had a very good time. Yes, actually, it just flew by. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
And thank you so much. And thank you to our listeners. This is WW 100.1 FM, Frankfurt, Alberta. And this was Whispers of Departure. Thank you, everyone.